September 6, 2012, Committee as a Whole meeting for Business Affairs and Administrative. Ms. Debbie, can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Alford? Mr. Hannigan? Mrs. Hines?
Here.
Mr. Derman?
Here.
Mr. Luke?
Here.
Mr. Harrell?
Here.
Mrs. Tipton?
Here.
Mr. Jeter?
Here.
Mrs. Seeley?
Here.
Mrs. Mullet?
Present.
Mr. Betancourt? Mr. Womack?
Here.
Mr. Panks? Mr. Lamar?
Here.
And Mrs. Belisario.
Thank you. Ms. Hines, will you lead us in the invocation and pledge, please?
Would you please bow your heads? Dear Heavenly Father, we're very thankful to be here safely tonight. We're also thankful for the leadership of our school, parish, and state officials during the recent Hurricane Isaac. We also want to ask that those who had damage, we ask for patience and perseverance for them as they rebuild. Please be with us tonight as we do the school system's work and guide us in our decision making. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. Next, we have persons requesting time on the agenda, and we have none, so moving on. We have the approval of minutes for the committee as a whole meeting held August 2nd, 2012. Do I have a motion?
I move.
Thank you. All those, let's see, any public comments? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All those abstain. Thank you. Next, we have the Hurricane Isaac update. Mr. Foltz, please.
Thank you, Mr. Derman. Good evening, board members. What I'd like to do tonight is just to bring you kind of one final report on Hurricane Isaac. We kind of tried to keep you updated as we went along, but I wanted to just share with you, start to finish, what we had done at the school system. And in putting my thoughts together, I thought probably the easiest and best way to do this was just kind of chronologically go in order with you, how it started with us, and work through the days, because as you know, when you're up here and you're dealing with the hurricane, and the days and hours and minutes all seem to run together. So the best way for me was just to get it like this, and then I'll be glad to entertain any questions that you may have once I'm finished. We started on Friday, August 24th, where we had some inkling that there was a possibility of either a tropical storm or a hurricane to come towards us. And we actually sent out an email to all of our principals that day on Friday, that morning early, reminding them to follow our protocol and our prep plan and to prepare their campuses as much as possible for any incoming hurricane or storm that may come our way. As we all remember from Hurricane Katrina, when we left on a Friday, we certainly didn't know where we would be getting on the Monday morning. So we played it safe. We got the word out to all the principals, and we heard back from them that they had indeed made their campuses ready. And I will tell you, I think because of the preparation that we had in many of our schools and the work that the administrators did, that we prevented a lot of things that could have caused us damages, both from a financial point of view as well as a facility point of view. So I think that Friday, the work we did in preparation certainly helped us. We monitored the storm throughout the day. I will tell you, Saturday, every time you looked at the weather, you got something different. One time, St. Tammany was in the cone of probability, and then the next time it wasn't. And then when you looked again Saturday night, it was in the cone of probability. So we kind of ratcheted up our decision making as we went along there. I spent the weekend at the ELC with the emergency operation preparedness officials. We would do the conference calls every 4 hours, just trying to get the updates from them as we go along. And through that weekend, we made the decision to have school on Monday. That was a decision that was a tough one. It wasn't an easy one to make. Meredith was happy with me because I think we went from about 600 followers on Facebook to about 6,000. On Facebook they tell you you're supposed to like me or something like that. I can assure you there were a lot of people on Facebook that signed up for us, but probably didn't like us at the time. But, you know, these decisions, as I've told you many times before, and I even remember Gail Sloan saying that some of the toughest decisions you have to make have to do with these hurricanes and the situation like that. And there are no easy decisions on those. You impact people each way you go. You make some happy, you make some not happy. The one thing that we've constantly said from this central office and from this superintendent's office is we honor and respect whatever decision any parent has to make for what's best for their child. What we give them is the guidance and direction of what we think and what we know as a system, what's best for the school system as a whole. But I will always respect whatever parent's decision that they have to make for whatever's best for their child. And that's what we encourage them to do, and that's what we try to do as a school system. So as we went through with that, we also made a decision pretty close to that to cancel school on Tuesday. When we knew Monday was okay, we canceled school on Tuesday. I will tell you, and as working with the parents, we made it clear to them through the principals that any student that was absent would be excused absence, but not only would be excused, it would be considered excused exempt absence, which would allow them to make up their work, but also did not count against the 10 days that the state allows them to get with that. Happy to say that we had about an 83% attendance rate on that Monday, which was very good for the day. It was a beautiful day. It was a pretty day. The south side, of course, the Slidell area, the attendance was a little lower, and this end of the parish, the attendance was a little higher. But I think it was a good decision, you know, and as I've told people before, it was good this time, doesn't mean we'll be right the next time. There's just so much hit and miss with that, and there's so many factors that you have to take in place. But having school, I think, on Monday did work out well, and it also gave us some wiggle room as we go on to the rest of the week. We also did a declaration on Monday working with Mr. Petuzak that protected the school system, a declaration of a state of emergency for the tropical storm Hurricane Isaac, where it kind of took care of the legal ramifications to help us as we go about reimbursements from FEMA as we go along. So Harry helped us with that, and we were able to get that in place on Monday before we left for the end of the day. Tuesday the 28th, we basically monitored the storm all day, and we're in meetings about every 4 hours with our Office of Emergency Preparedness, hearing their probabilities and hearing their predictions as we went along. And then on Wednesday, we made the decision to close the schools for Thursday, and at the same time, we made a decision for Friday. The thinking there was to give some people some heads up of what was going on. And then we had the Monday Labor Day sitting in there too. So it gave them some time to recover from what they needed to do dealing with the storm. You know, a lot of times we just do a day at a time because we don't want to stretch ourselves too far out and then have a day like Monday where nothing really happens. But in this case, because we had school on Monday, it gave us a little wiggle room with Friday. So we was able to do the Thursday, Friday, the weekend, the Labor Day, and really we got some really good feedback from a lot of people thinking that know in advance it helped them. It helped employees that were trying to decide whether they should, you know, go out of town, stay in town. Now that they had an extra Labor Day weekend, if their house was okay, they could do something else. If not, they could help other people. So that really worked out well. Over those 2 days, of course, Tuesday and Wednesday, we rode out the storm here at the central office, and I can tell you this was a storm that seemed like it never ended. You know, every time we thought it was close to being over, it continued. On Thursday, we started our phone tree to all the principals, and we asked all of our principals on Friday, as soon as they could, to go into their schools and put their eyes on their schools and report back to us. You know, Thursday, we started, maintenance guys, myself, Bill, others were actually going around the parish and looking at schools from the outside. But from the outside, you can only see so much. Only the principal or assistant principal of the school knows every nook and cranny of their school. So it was important for them to get into their schools, do a walkthrough, let us know what they saw, and then we could move forward as we go on there. So I certainly appreciate the efforts of our administrators to get into their schools as quick as they could. On Friday, the 31st, in this room, at 8:30 in the morning, we had a meeting with all of our central office supervisors who came to work. Even though the rest of the school system was off, the maintenance workers all worked that day as well. And basically what we did was assign supervisors to almost every school. And they were the liaison person between that school and Bill Brady and myself in the central office. We had on Friday morning, we had all principals had visited their school by 10 o'clock Friday morning. and they actually reported back to us by then. So a great effort by them on that Friday morning. Friday morning, we still had 7 schools without power. We had determined that St. Tammany Junior High School had the most damage, had about 6 or 7 inches of water in one building, and then had lesser amount of water in other buildings. We also had reports of Brock Elementary, if you remember Katrina, how bad Brock was. Brock Elementary took a little bit of water in the administration building. Funny story on that, just 2 days ago, I got an email from a lady that we had dealt with when Michelle Obama came to town. Her name is Joycelyn Fry. She works for the First Lady. She actually sent an email to me asking how Brock and other schools in St. Tammany Parish had fared, just because they remembered her trip there. They remembered working with them on the book and other things, and so they were actually checking on our school system as well. Mary Landrew, when I was at a press conference with her, she said, how about Salmon? Because she had ties to Salmon and helping us with the FEMA money on that as well. Covington High School had some water in the auditorium. That's an ongoing issue that we deal with. Coach Loop, I know, knows that as well. So that was one of the issues that we continue to deal with there at Covington High. So knowing that St. Tammany Junior High was going to be our biggest concern, Cameron Tipton, doing the great job that she did, sought the quotes that were needed. We had already established some businesses, and I'm happy to say local businesses that were here and available that did this kind of work. So we'd already, a couple years ago, had some plans in place if we ever needed restoration work done again. We had 5 different quotes, so we believe we got a good quote, and we awarded that contract to a local company to do the restoration, and I will tell you they did a fabulous job. We had some great help there. Cameron spent much time there. Bill spent time there. Vince DiCarlo, the principal, did a great job there. Then I will tell you a special help came from Byron Williams. If you know Byron and you know his history, not only was he a student there, he also was a principal there at one time. His mom lives about 2 houses down the road from the school. And on that night, I got a call from Byron just telling me that he was going to stay in his mom's house and he was going to supervise the work at St. Tammany Junior High. That wasn't me calling and saying, hey, I need you to do this. This is just Byron saying, this is what the kids of St. Tammany need. They need to be in school on Tuesday. This is what the south side of Slidell needs. And he took it upon himself, working with everyone else, to do that. And that's just the kind of dedication, just one example of the many people that gave many dedications of this time. Our transportation supervisors, through Kathy's leadership, ran the bus routes. They had the supervisors run the routes, all the roads that, you know, we pretty well know the roads that are always the problems. We checked those out, and we wanted to make sure they were safe before any of the buses got on the road. After we thought we were good and we had a pretty good feel on everything, I was kind of feeling good about it. I get a call from Kim Salter, who works in Pat Brister's office, and she tells me about this cresting of the Pearl River. So I'm like, I just cannot. But at first I thought, she said, you need to come back up here. And I said, no, you're kidding. No, you're not. So then that was, you know, another phase of this whole thing. We had the cresting of the Pearl River. We had 5 schools in the Military Road area that could be impacted. Of course, we had all the families in the Military Road area. Probably about 5,000 kids would have been impacted by that. And as you know, if you followed it, the timing of the crest changed, seemed like every 4 hours. And in it would crest in Pearl River at one time, and then 6 or 8 hours later, it would get to Military Road. So there was a lot of back and forth with that. You know, Mary Kay was sharing information with us. Gene Balisero was at a lot of the meetings with me as well. And there was just, you know, a lot of uncertainty with that, whereas the other things, we kind of knew what we had to do. We had a plan. But this one thing with the Pearl River just kind of kept us from, like, finalizing everything we needed to do. Sunday was basically the same thing. And if you remember Sunday as well, they had the scare with the bush hickory, with the locks that were going to bust in 20-foot tidal waves and everything like that. We had already basically got out of all of our shelters, and we got a call that we wanted to reopen Creekside Shelter from the people for the bush hickory area. And of course, we never tell them no. And so we reopened that, or kept it open, and we provided some shelter to some people in the Hickory and Bush area, and hopefully and thankfully nothing came out of that. Basically the same good results as the Pearl, but these are things that you have to be prepared from. So those things that pretty much kept us going, even though we felt good about the initial stages of Isaac and the things that we had covered. On Monday morning at 10 o'clock, Labor Day morning, I asked every principal to go and visit their schools one more time, and I gave them a deadline of 10 o'clock that morning. So by 10 o'clock that morning, each principal had reported in to Bill, Pete, Cheryl, and myself, who we were all up here taking phone calls, saying, final check, yes, my school is good to go. By 10 o'clock that morning, Monday morning, other than St. Tammany Junior High, we had the A-OK on every school. So that was a good feeling there. We were still watching the river, but we were feeling better about that. The Bush Hickory thing had pretty much passed, so our focus then continued on St. Tammany Junior High and the work that needed to be done there to finish up in time for them to open Tuesday morning. As I mentioned, we used Creekshot Shelter. Covington High School also served as a shelter. Pitcher Junior High was a shelter, as well as Lyon Elementary School. So those are 4 shelters that this school system made available to the citizens of St. Tammany Parish. They were manned by different people, and Peggy Seeley was involved in that as well, manned by many volunteers from the Red Cross. But we'll also tell you that anytime we open a shelter, it impacts the administrator of that school, the custodian at that school, the others that are at the school that have to offer keys up and do other things like that. So I appreciate their efforts as well. Kurt Gaspard served as our liaison with the EOC and the shelter openings, and I think all in all that was a pretty smooth operation. There's some things that we learned and some things that we'll certainly be working with the EOC on the next time around, but I think it's important to us as a school system to offer our facilities to the public when it's needed, and certainly think that we came through on that. So Monday, about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we all got to go home for Labor Day. So that was pretty nice to be home for a couple hours and spend the rest of Labor Day at the house. Tuesday morning was our first day back at school, and our attendance that day was at 94%. We had 94% attendance on the first day back. That was either parents that were ready to get rid of their kids and get them back to school, or they were happy to be back and going. I can tell you, as we told all the media, teaching and learning took place, I guarantee you that, on Tuesday morning at the very beginning. And to have that kind of attendance certainly shows that our parents made the commitment to get back into town and do everything they needed to do to make sure that their son or daughter was back in school on that first day. So we're certainly happy with that. A couple people I'd like to thank, of course, are Cheryl, Pete, and Bill. From the central office staff. Bill did a great job coordinating his efforts with his people. I know not only were there admin supervisors involved, Cheryl's supervisors were involved as well, the maintenance department, all those different people were under our direction at that time. And as we said for quite a while in this central office, there's no admin department that's by itself. There's no C&I. We all work together, as evidenced by every supervisor that was up here on that morning that we needed help, and as evidenced by everyone pitching in and doing what they had to do to make sure that every school got to open on Tuesday morning. A maintenance department and those guys, Ronnie, Wade, Jeff, all those guys, Dale, did a great job making sure that everything was in place, and whatever a school needed to open, we certainly made sure that happened. And in addition to the work at St. Tammany by the restoration people, our maintenance people took care of the smaller projects that made a difference. I tried to do a really good job of getting emails out to you guys on a daily basis, giving you updates. I knew each one of you were dealing with your own situations, but I also knew how important it was for you guys to hear what we were going on with. And you know, that's hard to do when you have a million other things going on. Meredith was a big help with that. She helped. I would tell her kind of what we wanted to say. She knew what we were dealing with, and she was on top of that as well. And I think, you know, it paid off to be able to do that and give that information to you guys. After I would send it to y'all, I would forward it to the principals and assistant principals and just give them an update as well. You know, everybody kind of gets caught up with what's going on at their school, but when they take a breath, they want to know what's going on at other schools as well. So that was I got good feedback from the principals, assistant principals, and then much of that same information we were putting on our website. We were doing Twitter, we were doing Facebook. You know, as we have the YouTube channel now, the press conferences, excuse me, that I was involved in, we're getting tremendous hits on the YouTube channel. So these were all just different ways that we were trying to get the word out to the public, depending upon what their situation was. I want to also say a special thank you to CLECO and WST. Once they get hospitals done, They always come to us right after that and say, what can we do to help the school system? Mike was our coordinator with the electrical people, and I can tell you every one of them will say, what do you need from a school system? What can I do? And then whenever we tell them a situation, you know, they would take care of it for us and get our schools up as quick as possible. So all this other work we've done, if you don't have power to your school, it certainly doesn't matter everything else that's been done. So without them, we couldn't do it. Pat Ferris and her group worked with the food and refrigerators. If you remember after Katrina, what a big mess that was and everything that was involved in going along with that. It was certainly on a much smaller scale this time around, but we were able to accomplish everything we needed to do to make sure everybody had a good hot meal on Tuesday morning. Excuse me. Dexter Accardo from the EOC Director's Office. And then I want to say a special thank you to Pat Brister, our parish president. Every time there was a press conference, every time there was any kind of call-ins that we needed information, she made sure I was at the table. She made sure I was getting the information. She made sure her people were available to me so that we can make the most informed information we could. And then Sheriff Jack Strain, as we all know, is a huge friend to the school system in so many different ways. He shared what he knew with us. If we needed something from law enforcement, they were there to do it for us. So both of those people should be commended for their efforts that they made to our school system. You know, we talk about teamwork. It was certainly evident. We talk about community connections. Well, these were community connections. All these community connections we've been making through the years paid off for us as we go about doing what we needed to do to open the school system as quick as possible. There's a short video that Channel 13 put together. I think it's like a really good little overview of what we were able to accomplish. We showed it at the principals meeting the other day, and I just want to share it with you, and then we'll answer any questions that anybody might have.
As soon as Hurricane Isaac blew through the area, Superintendent Trey Folse met with his administrative staff to discuss the damages and the subsequent repair work needed in order to get schools open for Tuesday.
By 10 o'clock this morning, every principal is going to be at their school putting eyes on their school.
Maintenance staff were already at some schools assessing damages and beginning the cleanup needed to open schools on Tuesday.
We had 3 inches in the band room. We had 4 inches in the main building. We had 6 to 7 inches in the gym in my 7th grade wing. I've been in contact with every person in the central office, from Mr. Folse to Mr. Jabbia to Mr. Brady, Mike Kosang, and so everybody's giving me whatever assistance that we need to make this school open.
Meanwhile, Superintendent Folse met with parish officials and Senator Mary Landrieu at the Emergency Operations Center in Covington to update the community on the status of the recovery.
Today, things are getting better. I think if you've been out on the roads, you've seen that, and we have some good news to report.
Superintendent Folse briefed those present with a school system update.
This present time, principals are in each one of their schools, and our plan is for them by noon today to actually visit and walk their entire campus and report back to us what they found.
Senator Landrieu stressed the significance of the school system in supporting the community throughout Hurricane Isaac.
So it's so important for the school system and the parish to work together, for shelters to use if they need it for the schools, but then to try to get the kids back to school as quickly as possible.
With this year, we've been stressing Team St. Tammany, and I was standing up there with thinking that of all the people, and just how it's important to be a part of a team and be a member of a team, and I think we do that by providing the shelters and doing everything like that, and in turn we get really good information, we get good support, and what the school system does is certainly appreciated by the people in this parish.
Sheriff Jack Strain echoed Superintendent Folse's comments on the importance of teamwork.
Teamwork says it all. I said just a moment ago that this parish president has proved to us that government can work, and it works best when we all work together. The school system and the sheriff's office has always had a partnership because we work more day in and day out.
Superintendent Folse acknowledged Parish President Brister and her effective leadership during Hurricane Isaac.
I can tell you the work that she's done and the advances that we've made as a parish to communicate and get information to the school system, which ultimately helps every citizen in this parish. So I thank her for those efforts, and we want to be part of the team, as our Mayor Drennan mentioned, to do whatever we can to provide service not only to our students but to all the citizens that support our school system. I was thinking one other thing I'd like to mention. You know, we went to this new JPAM system, which is a grading system, but it also gives us a new caller notification system. And as just like the JPAM system itself, there's been some tweaks that are going along. But because of this JPAM system, we were able to reach out and call many parents. So we use that quite a bit as well to give them updates. So just another way of, with everybody busy and being in different directions, to actually call their phone and to tell them what's going on in a recorded message. So that's something that just really came around at the right time for us, and something that we'll continue to use as a school system. Another thing that came to mind, when we were out, was doing a pay period. You know, it was the end of the month, and Terry and Lewis and others made sure everybody got paid and their direct deposits were in on time as well. So some couple other things that we had to do to make sure everything went smoothly, and certainly accomplished that.
Thank you, Mr. Foles. I guess now we're going to open it up to board members that have questions. And okay, Ms. Heinz.
Mine isn't a question, but I just feel like I need to comment that we had lessons learned from Hurricane Katrina. But this was a different storm, and so we had different things that we need to put in place, and I felt like that was handled very well by the school system. The communication was excellent, and it was very helpful to us as a board, but it was helpful to the community in general, and the idea of the principals going to their schools and making the walkthrough and then reporting back to you was just, it was all just greatly executed, and I really appreciate the time and effort. I know it was a physical and mental stress, but it was very much appreciated on everyone who participated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Heinz. Mr. Betancourt.
I'd just like to reiterate what Mrs. Heinz just touched on, just to thank from the superintendent on down. All of you people, you did a fantastic job. You know, you stepped up and did what you had to do. And as a board, I think each and every one of us and the citizens, a lot of people saw what y'all did, and they'll never hear about it. But everybody appreciates the effort. And I'd like y'all to take this Sunday off.
Thank you, Mr. Betancourt.
Yeah. We're going to work around the Saints game.
Ms. Seeley.
Thank you, Mr. Dierman. I'd like to make a comment about American Red Cross. We had many local volunteers that began the efforts of preparing and strategizing and getting in gear for the storm. Many of us moved in prior to the storm into the office and worked 24/7. And along with our wonderful Red Cross volunteers that have come from out of state, I would like to give a shout out to all of them for their tireless, their ability to just meet all the needs of the community. And at this time, I would like to just give a point of information. I know there are a lot of questions out in the community of, you know, numbers to call and so forth. And for a while, our number was not working at the office in Madisonville, but I did speak with Lou, the director, and she has reassured me that the client services are up and running, or gearing up to be out in the community more. And the number to call is that Madisonville office, which is 985-892-4317. Hopefully this phone will work a lot better than it has, because we were just bamboozled with a lot of phone calls, and so forth. Our voicemail that is there has been overloaded, but we have the New Orleans number working now, and so this will ease up some of the calls on the North Shore. So if you have any questions, just call that number. And pretty soon you're going to be seeing a lot more in the community with the client services getting in gear. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seeley. I guess that's our public service announcement for this afternoon. Anyone else? Mr. Womack.
Well, really, I think what's important is I told Trey via email how much I appreciate the central office staff and himself having just total sold-out commitment to this school system and this parish. You know, twice now he's lived at the central office. I mean, all day long, all throughout the weekend, throughout the whole ordeal. I would be willing to bet that there are school systems with much smaller student populations and number of employees that both superintendent and central office staff, I would have to question whether they put out near the kind of commitment that Trey and his staff has twice now. And just I, for one, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that I really appreciate that. It means everything to me, and I'm grateful to be a board member with a staff like this and a superintendent that really cares.
Thank you, Mr. Womack. Anyone else? I guess I'd like to make a comment as well. And I'm in the insurance business, so I actually get to firsthand see a lot of tragedy and the impacts that these catastrophic events incur to our community. And again, with the school system and Mr. Foltz's leadership and with everybody else's commitment to our school system, our students, our community, I mean, again, it is just another sign of how great things are in St. Tammany with the leadership, the teamwork, and the cooperation. But every storm has its own unique footprint when it comes in and the challenges that it presents. And Katrina had hers, and Isaac had his. So I mean, you can prepare as much as you can, but then you still have to react to what is actually taking place. And no one envisioned that this thing would hover over us for days on end. Normally these storms come in and they leave. This one just took up residency right here and really presented a lot of challenges for us all. And again, I would like to echo all of the other board members' comments. What a great job our team did with the leadership of Mr. Foltz and everyone else that committed to bringing our school system back up and running without missing a beat. So excellent job. Thank y'all. Okay, with that being said, we're moving on to administrative. Mr. Brady.
Thank you very much, Mr. Durman. We are now going to ask Mr. Danny Garrett of Redistricting LLC to bring you up to date, give you an update on the redistricting proposals, which we hope at the end of this meeting we will have a recommendation for the full board to consider at next week's meeting so we can move forward with this progress.
Mr. Brady, members of the board, Mr. Durman. As you'll recall, we started working on this quite a while ago. We tried to make the effort to meet with each one of you. We tried to get all of the sort of must-haves and desires and input from y'all, because you know your districts better certainly than we do as far as addressing the issues. And just as a short recap, the law does require that y'all do adopt a plan before the end of this year, even though it won't be used until your 2014 election. But you do have to go ahead and adopt a plan by the end of the year. We then submit it to Justice, have to have it pre-cleared prior to the August of your elections, and then it will be the plans you run under. There we go. Okay. I've never been told I didn't speak loud enough. So if you'll recall, back in July, after having worked with a number of you, ultimately there were essentially two general policy differences with regard to plans that were prepared to be proposed. What we ended up with is drafting 3 plans that actually came to the board. They were identified as Trial Plan 1, Trial Plan 2, and Trial Plan 5. Those 3 plans have been out there for public consumption since July. They've been on the website. I understand the maps have even been at the schools, so that y'all have the opportunity to receive input. Just as a refresher about why you're having to do this, when you input the 2010 census data into your current districts, you resulted in having a population of between 42% over the ideal population and between 25% below the ideal population. And by law, you've got to get those two numbers within 5% of that ideal population number. So we had a lot of people to move, so to speak. We have made sure that that all of the plans that have been drafted have maintained first of all, they meet that plus or minus 5% criteria. And secondly, they also maintain your one benchmark minority district so that we don't have any trouble getting the plan pre-cleared by the Justice Department. There was a fourth plan that we were asked to prepare sort of well after. It was a couple of weeks ago. We had a request by Mr. Alford. He had a notion for sort of a different way to approach it, and we went ahead and put that together. Again, that plan meets the plus or minus 5% criteria and does maintain the one minority district. Just as kind of a review, we can kind of go through. I think you have in your packet the handouts on the various plans. I was going to get to the numbers. I'll go ahead and Plan 1 was a plan that essentially involved moving one of the districts from the Slidell area into the Madisonville area. Again, Madisonville was that area that had the plus 42 population. The plan number 2 was sort of a different approach, and it addressed the population issue of essentially I can't think of a better term, of sliding districts to the west. It essentially slid districts to the west so that you sort of pushed districts 11 and 7 to the west to help pick up that population towards the western end of the parish without actually moving an entire district over there. The trial plan 5 was very similar to trial plan 1, with the exception of that the person that proposed it proposed moving her own district across the parish. And that was the one where Ms. Mullet had proposed having her district be the one that was picked up and moved over to Madisonville. It's very similar to trial plan 1 in numbers. Again, also complies. The other plan, which we've just named trial plan 6, what it essentially did, and this will be fairly new to most of you because it really hasn't been out there. It wasn't presented at that first meeting because it hadn't been confected at that time. We were asked to draw a plan that essentially connected Folsom and Covington. I think there was an effort to try to see if you could draft a plan where, although it may not be a majority district or a true minority district, whether it could be a minority influence district. We looked at every permutation that we could think of, and we were only able to get a plan with about a 25% minority population. That would be that District 9 that goes from Folsom down to Covington. So I don't know if we were able to achieve what Mr. Alford was looking for, but it was sort of, again, it takes a district from Slidell and moves it. So in that respect, it's somewhat similar to plans 1 and 5. Like I said, all of the plans do meet the legal requirements that they are within the plus or minus 5%. All of the plans do, in our view, comply with the Voting Rights Act and that they have met your benchmark. In fact, in all of the plans, we were actually able to increase the minority population of District 14, the minority district, to where it was a more securely a minority opportunity district than it was even in the benchmark. Like I said, that's kind of where we're at. At this point, I guess you're at a point where you get to make the policy decision. Certainly, we've tried to do our best to make sure that every one of you have had the opportunity to communicate to us and try and experiment on whatever you wanted to do. And certainly we're committed to continue doing that. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. And I know y'all have your own process that y'all go through in the Committee of the Whole, but that's the presentation. The plans are out there. Like I said, you've had 3 out there since July. You've had this most recent one that's fairly new. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gary. Ms. Mullet.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we accept Plan 5 for vote.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to accept Plan 5 by Ms. Mullet and seconded by Ms. Tipton. Is there any other questions or motions?
Well, if we're making motions to accept one or the other of these things, I'd like to suggest that we consider Plan 2, make a motion that we adopt Plan 2.
Okay, there's a Mr. Lamarck motion that we accept Plan 2, and seconded by Mr. Womack. Okay, is there any other plans under consideration by the board, or any other questions? Seeing none. Mr. Tusak, can I get you to step up and answer a question? We're going to vote on these as a pair, so you get one vote cast.
One vote, excuse me, for whichever plan the person wishes to vote for. Can't
Okay.
vote for two.
Okay, so will we do a roll call or vote by machine, or how do you want to do that?
Can vote, since there's only two, you can use the machine if you wish.
You better do a roll call.
Let's do a roll call. Okay, so, I'm sorry, Ms. Seeley?
Just a point of clarification, are we voting for this as our final plan?
That is correct.
Okay.
This would be a plan that goes next week as
To-
recommendation to the full board.
To the full board next week. Okay, so what we have nominated, we have Plan 2 and Plan 5, is that correct? So let's take them in the order that they're numbered so that we don't get confused. Okay. Is there any comments from the public? I'm sorry. Thank you, Harry. Rookie up here.
You sure you don't have anything to say about the plans?
You sure?
All right.
Okay. We can put you on tape.
Now discussion.
Okay.
Board members.
Now, I'm sorry. Sure. Mr. Lamarck, you want to?
Well, I'll discuss it, defend my position, I suppose. We worked pretty hard in Slidell to develop Plan 2, which did exactly what the fellow out there said we were supposed to do, that equalize the districts without incurring putting one board member against another. And that was part of the reason that we did it that way, because no board member's seat has been automatically destroyed. I did that the last time we did this thing, and I didn't like it too much. So that's pretty much the reason I want to do it. I don't want to see any one of the board members have to fight another board member for their seat. Also, I think that's the way it worked out, it seemed like it was the best way that we could come up with doing it. So that's about it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lamarck. Anyone else? Oh, Mr. Womack?
I'm sorry, Robin, but I would really like to see you stay with us in Slidell. So because of that, I can't support your desire to potentially eliminate yourself from this side of the parish. I'd really like to see you stay on this side. Just want you to be aware of that.
Ms. Mullet?
Well, I don't plan on moving.
Good. Good.
Any other comments by the board members? Any more discussion? With that, I am going to say something, and I know I'm chairman, but I think the whole purpose of the census and the redistricting and everything is to take in consideration any shifts or changes in population and growth that take place within a parish. And it just so happens that with the recent growth that took place in the Madisonville area, it had a large increase in several of those districts. And even though it may be an unpopular thing to shift a district from one area to another, in my opinion, that is what this purpose of this redistricting and the census is a result of. And it gives the representation follows the population. And we all know that Madisonville area is going to continue to grow as these census numbers are a couple of years old even today, and they continue to grow. And the redistricting won't actually take place until 2 years from now when that election takes place. So basically, these numbers would be 4 years old by the time, this plan comes into effect, or a new plan comes into effect. So, I think Ms. Mullet's concept of what she tried to do, and that's to align the school learning communities in accordance with as much as you possibly could with a school board member's district, I think is very admirable. And she basically eliminated her own school district. So in doing so, I give her kudos for having a lot of guts to do something like that.
Yes.
So, and with that being said, we're ready to vote. So I'm through talking. And we're going to do a roll call vote on the first plan, Plan 2. Like I said, we're going to keep them in that order. Then the next vote would be on Plan 5, as those are the two plans that have been nominated. So all those in favor of Plan 2, say yes, please. Or wait, I'm going to go down the line. Is that right? Okay. Ms. Hines.
Mr. Petuzak, would they just say either 2 or 5, whichever
Okay.
they want? Like the
Okay.
board member's name will be called out. We'll go in order, numerical order of districts, and you'll say either 2 or 5, and whichever one receives the most votes will be the one that then goes to next Thursday night. And let's get all this out here. Is my understanding next Thursday night that recommendation must receive minimum of 8 votes, no matter what the attendance is at next Thursday night's meeting? Next week.
Okay, and this vote is just a simple majority of who's
Correct.
here. Okay. All right, with that being said, so Ms. Hines,
Plan 5.
okay.
Plan 5.
Plan 5.
Plan 5.
Plan 5.
Ms. Seeley?
Abstain.
Plan 5.
I vote last, so Ron?
Plan 5.
Okay. Mr. Womack?
Plan 2.
Mr. Lamarck?
2.
Ms. Bellisario? Okay, without, Ms. Debbie, you want to, well, I'm going to vote Plan 5, I'm sorry.
9 for 5, 2 for Plan 2, and 1 abstain.
Okay. So that's the official vote. We have 2 for Plan 2, 9 for Plan 5, and 1 abstention. So Plan 5 will be the plan that's recommended to the full board next week.
Right.
I want to thank everybody for their efforts in this. I know everybody spent a lot of time looking at the numbers, trying to figure out what would be in the best interest for the community as well as the board. I know it's very difficult, and but I think the effort shows with the number of plans that were presented and the consideration that was given to all. So I thank everyone involved with that. Thank y'all very much. So now, let me find my agenda. And we're back to Mr. Brady again for the monthly construction report.
Good. Thank you very much. Our monthly construction report, Ms. Tipton is here. If you have any questions?
Any questions from Ms. Hines?
Cameron, what about Madisonville Junior High? Was the construction affected in any way?
I think all the construction sites obviously lost a little time just preparing for the hurricane and being off the site. And Madisonville Junior was no different. They had been expecting or working towards making a switch in the cafeteria towards totally being on the temporary side so that they could begin working in the existing kitchen side. And they had hoped to do that kind of over the Labor Day weekend, and so they lost that opportunity, but they're working towards that for the next weekend or two. And so that's coming back together. But that was the only thing that really was impacted specifically.
I drove by today, and there were people working hard, but I
Yes, ma'am.
just felt like I need to ask. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Luke, did you have a question? Okay. Anyone? Ms. Belisario?
Thank you. I asked about Covington High last month, I believe, the roof there that continues to leak into the business classroom, and I understand that some computers have been wet. Has that ever been?
We continue to work with the roofer and the school and the roofing manufacturer with regard to that. The roofer will take full responsibility for anything that was lost during the process of the roofing. The school will give us a complete list of everything that was lost, so we will follow through with that. And the roofing manufacturer is working very closely with the roofer to make sure that everything is addressed properly and will be under warranty.
What are we doing for the classrooms right now? Can they conduct classes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
And when do you think this will finally be solved?
I'm hoping very soon, but we are still working with them on it right now.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Brady, back to you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Tipton. Our monthly maintenance custodial report is there. Mr. Ronnie and Jeff and Wade and Dale are here to answer any questions.
Any questions, Mr. Lamarck?
No, I don't have a question. I just have a comment. Ronnie, you and your guys did a great job over at St. Tammany. Appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Mr. Lamarck, may I add, and I know they did an exceptional job at St. Tammany, but they are, as I've said before, the unsung heroes or the hidden heroes of our school system. They did a magnificent job throughout the parish during a very, very trying time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We appreciate them very much.
Mr. Brady?
Mr. Gaspard's here with his monthly risk management report. If you have any questions.
And Kurt was pulling out FEMA forms that were 7 years old the other day. They had water stains on them and everything else. And he kept a pretty good, no, it wasn't in your brain. It was in the filing cabinet. Don't be pointing to your brain.
Mr. Luke?
Kurt, am I reading this right about monthly bus accidents? We had 8 in August.
That was evacuations.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Nothing was really as serious.
Right.
Turn your mic back.
Okay.
Turn the mic.
Kurt, could you put your mic on? Is that it, Mr. Luke? Any other questions? I guess I got a question for you in regards to the hurricane event. Did we have very much wind damage to any of our schools? I mean, I know Mr. Pols gave us a report.
There were some reports of some minor roof issues around the parish, but nothing significant.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, back to you, Mr. Brady.
Thank you. Ms. Amy and Ms. Buell and Ms. Masters are here with the transportation report this evening. If you have any questions.
Seeing none, we're moving on. Business affairs, I guess.
Thank you
Ms.
very much.
Fortenberry. Thank you, Mr. Brady. Excellent job tonight.
Consideration of superintendent's proposed budgets for fiscal year 2012 and 2013. Ms. Araby has a presentation for you.
Thank you.
This evening, what I'd like to do is just give you a review of the presentation that we shared at our public hearing on the budget, just because it has been a few weeks. First of all, as you know, this is the way our budget, our general fund budget is broken down into 55.9% comes from the state, 44% is from our local revenues, and then less than 1% is from federal funds. This is exactly a picture or snapshot from your general fund budget book. You can see here that from the state funding, it's around $201 million. Local funds, $158.2 million, and then federal funds are right at $500,000. This is on, I believe, page 3 in your budget book. And then this actually shows you how, when all the funds are added up, these are the percentages of how the money from the general fund budget is distributed. Remembering that at least 70% of the general fund budget has to be used instructionally. And so you will see that we certainly fall within that criteria to get approval at the state of our budget. See, our transportation is 9.2%, maintenance at 10.1%, administration 2.5%, and all other services are right around 3.6%. As you can see, when you look at what we are anticipating in the way of revenues, we are projecting that we will probably see a $1 million increase in the way of our sales tax. And on this page in your budget book, you'll see that we have $500,000 in one of the lines for, I believe, the 66 tax, and then $500,000 on the other line. But that would result in $1 million increase. Along with that, we are going to have an increase in the way of expenditures with our retirement, and we're projecting that that will be right around $2.2 million. And as we shared with you, and this is just another clear example of how we have been very diligent in looking at our budgets and making sure that we're doing everything possible so that our with the revenues being decreased coming in from our MFP, that we are continuing to look at every single line item as well as programs and any other activity that we can look at in our budget of how we can make those decreases without having any impact on those students in the classroom. As you remember, we did vote on, or you did vote on eliminating extended sick leave for this year, and we projected that that will be a $1.72 million to the savings to the budget. Of course, that there will be extended sick leave for any of those critical illnesses, and Mr. Jabbia stays right on top of that, and I know he's explained that at our previous board meetings. Sabbaticals, that is under the same umbrella, $1.79 million savings, but there again, if it is a sabbatical that has the critical illness attached to it, that too would be approved. In the way of personnel adjustments, there is right around 165 positions that were that we did not replace through attrition. Remember, these are positions that we talked about. One example would be 5 curriculum specialists were not replaced. Many of that group did retire. We had some special ed coordinators that took teaching positions within different schools that were available in their certificated area. This is also in the way of librarians that are being shared at some of our schools, depending on the population and size of the school, as well as parish-wide assistants that we are not having that in place as well this year. I need to be clear that no one lost their job. All of this was accomplished through attrition as positions came available. Mr. Jabby and I continue. If a retirement comes in, he gets with me, we look at schedules, and then that decision is made by the superintendent on if that position is to be replaced or not. That is ongoing. Then you know that when you look at the non-salary cuts, as we spoke about earlier, we looked at every single line item in our budget, and we were able to see we took a $7 million cut in this area. And we've been very clear that we hope that this holds during the year, but we do know that we have really cut those line items really, really close, and we continue to look at that each and every purchase order that comes through to make sure that that budget line does have the funds there. But we always know you have those unexpected issues, last week being one of them, where we may need to revisit some of those line items. So in order to make sure that we are continuing to look at our budget, we're going to continue with the revisions during the year. We are hopeful that when we come back to you in November, that we may have a trend to see where our sales tax maybe has a little bit more money. And we're hoping that our student count, too, may be able to assist us in the way of the MFP money. But we're going to come back to you in November, and then we'll come back again in April, and then in August, where, you know, we moved that back 2 months this year because this gives us a clear indication. Most of the money has been circled and through the budget so that we have a really clean and clear idea of exactly what were the expenditures and revenues for the previous year. And then we'll be back to you again in 2013 with the new budget.
Thank you, Ms. Araby. Mr. Foles, I believe you wanted to make
Sure, if I
comment?
could, before the questions, I just wanted to thank Cheryl and Terry for her efforts. And tonight, board members, I just asked Cheryl to show these slides to you again. You saw them, I think, when we did our first, Cheryl, when we did our first hearing on the budget and presented this to you. But I just thought it was good for you to see this again and to realize these numbers and pretty much how we have done basically all we can to get to this budget, one that we feel comfortable presenting to you. We'll tell you that it's pretty much cut to the bone as far as it can be. When you look at the positions that have not been filled, and when you look at an MFP that has been frozen for quite some while, when you look at the cost of retirement that continues to grow, these are concerns that we have moving forward. I feel good about what we've done in our health insurance. That's a plan that's ongoing, as Mr. Jabbia will always remind me, that it's not a one-year plan. It's a plan that's going from year to year that we'll hope to continue to keep us good in that situation. But I will tell you that, you know, in some of the other things we see, we certainly have concerns. If the MFP does not increase, we certainly have concerns about the way the MFP is being calculated now, as opposed to what we've seen in the past, dealing with students that are never ours in the first place, that may, whether they be from NOCA or whether they be in other places. So that concerns us now as well. So I just want to make the board and the public and everyone aware that we've made some cuts. I mean, we've done some things, whether it be the parish-wide assistant principal program, whether it be, you know, some of the second librarians or some of the different things that we've done. We have not cost anyone their job. We have not done anything that I believe this year impacts the instruction in the classroom. My concern is that a year from now that I'll be able to sit here and tell you the same thing. And without us looking at some other options that are going to be out there, or without some things improving on the state level, I'm not sure I'll be able to sit here and tell you that a year from now. So we continue to work with that. We do that every day. Whether it be Cheryl or Terry or myself, we're talking budget every day. We're looking at things that we can do as a school system to commit to that class size that we all are proud of and know how important it is. But we also have to be realistic and look down the road and be prepared for the things that may come our way. And we're going to do that, and we're going to make sure that the school system remains a school system that we can all be proud of.
Thank you, Mr. Foles. Ms. Belisario.
Thank you. Ms. Araby, when you first presented this on August 15th, you told us that we had 58 students who had chosen to go to a voucher school. Is that number still roughly the same?
Actually, it's 56 at this point in time. We do understand that there was another round. We have not gotten that information yet. Another round for the whole state, not necessarily just for St. Tammany. And we were told that the very first part of September that we would get the actual list of those students. We have not gotten that as of yet.
And that's something that's important to us as a school system, not to know the person's name or anything like that, but to know where they came from. What we can do as a school system to see why that happened. Also to make sure that they met the requirements or the criteria to move from our school system. So, and we want to, you know, of course, we want every child. I mean, make no bones that we want every child that lives in this parish, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that they want to come to our school system. So if they're leaving us for one reason or another, we certainly want to try to find out why and do everything we can to make this school system as attractive as possible to every parent in St. Tammany Parish.
Ms. Hines.
That being said, Mr. Foles, I know we have had an increase of students this year, and we do not see MFP funds from the first day these children enter the school system. So what is our increase?
Yeah, and we had a big
student
discussion
population?
on this today, and we started talking, it's confusing and it's different than what it's been in the past. And so Cheryl gave me an example today that I think was one that would really hit home for all of us, and I told her to be ready to share it tonight, so let's give it a try.
If you, in other words, you have different facilities. You have the deaf school, and then you have your NOCA, and then you have your math and science school. So let's say, for instance, that 8 students or 8 children from St. Tammany Parish are attending the deaf school. The local revenues as well as the state revenues follow those students. Where the breakdown, we believe, in the transferring out of the MFP money is those students are not counted in our enrollment. So, in other words, 8 students at the deaf school who live in St. Tammany Parish, that could result in as much as $73,000. But those 8 students were not on the rolls of our public school system. So they're taking that $73,000 off the top from the number of students that we do count in our school system. So that's, and the same thing would be true with your scholarship children. We have 56 scholarship children at this time that we know of. That money, that $9,143 local and MFP money, is following those students. But those 56 students are not counted in that total amount that we get from our MFP money.
So just to be clear, for example, NOCA, in the past, the money for the NOCA students came out of state funds, did not come out of St. Tammany Parish funds. Is that correct?
That's what we believe.
And we think that now those funds, instead of coming out of a different pot of money, not our school system money, that those funds are now coming out of St. Tammany Parish funds. So in other words, we don't get credit for those students because they're on our roll, but we do have the money taken. That's our understanding. We're looking, you know, if we're wrong, we certainly will report back to you we're wrong, and we're looking for clarification every day, and we continue to look at clarification.
And it's actually a transfer out on the MFP calculation that we do
By
receive.
schools.
Okay, Ms. Hines?
Another thing that I'd like to say is that I believe fiscal review and the importance of that as we're watching every dollar is very important for our school system. We appreciate that we're getting that information. But I'd also like to ask that you try to keep a list of programs that are affected by our budget, and so that we'll know what specifically we're losing for our students.
I do think it's important for me to say, and I know that I've said this before, that we are looking at all of our other budgets, our IDEA budget and our Title I budget, and what you're seeing is more of an alignment, so that we're just doing a really good job of using all of our funds very effectively and efficiently. And the LEAP remediation program is one that I continue to remind us of, is that our program is great. And what we have done is we're using the IDEA funds for it, the Title I funds for it, and then the general fund is supplementing it a little bit. But it's been a great deal of savings to our general fund. So the superintendent has been clear. Our programs are not to suffer, but we're also to make sure that the programs are very effective. We're just doing a better job of making sure that they're efficient.
Ms. Hines?
You're going to work leaner and meaner, right? I know that there's probably further discussion, but I think we need a motion to accept
Yes,
the
we do.
budget. So I'll go ahead and make the motion.
Ms. Hines made the motion. And Mr. Womack seconded. Mr. Womack, you had your hand up to talk, or? Okay, I'm sorry. All right. Ms. Mullet,
Okay.
you're okay?
Well, let me just, yeah, no. Let me try to
Okay.
explain. I'm sorry. So, when we're speaking about the children that are going to the voucher schools, okay, who may have never been, or the, say, the deaf school or the math and science school, these students who have never been in our, are not enrolled in our school at all. So they're not part of the number of our MFP number to begin with.
Your scholarship students had to be a student in our system last year.
Okay.
And they had to be attending a CD or F school, and they had to be a free and reduced lunch student. But they're not, so they were a part of our money for February 1st of last year. But no, they're not going to be in our account for this year. They're not on our rolls for this year when October 1 comes. But the money is going to be taken out of the MFP money for this coming year.
Gee, well.
That's correct. They never. So the scholarships are a little bit different. We did get funding for them last year, but they're not on our rolls for this year.
Right.
The deaf children, the math and science students, and the NOCA children, they possibly were never on our rolls. That's
So
correct.
really, it's like taking more
Double-
money
double
away
it.
from us.
Double
It's
dipping.
the
It
way
is
they're
double dipping.
transferring the funds out of our MFP.
That's disappointing. Thank you.
Ms. Tipton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one clarification. On the NOCA people, the children, they go to NOCA. They go to our schools part of the day, and then they go to NOCA. So we're not receiving any money whatsoever for them. Is that right, or am I wrong?
For NOCA, we do get a portion, that's a smaller. We have 221 students we're being deducted for, and the amounts we get deducted from our MFP range from $1,500 a student to $9,100 a student. So NOCA is one of the lower end. I think it's $1,519 for each of those kids, so it's not a full amount.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Lamarck?
So the state's taken $5,400 for the MFP, is that correct, for each one of these kids?
5,578.
Well, it was close. But the state is going to deduct our, what do you call it, matching funds, whatever we put up. So from our MFP, they're going to get not $5,400 and something dollars, but $9,100?
That's correct.
And that's coming directly from the state, bypassing us completely, right?
That's correct.
So what happens in a parish like St. Helena, who only gets the minimum foundation? They only contribute $5,400 to the scholarship program?
Well, it's based on the MFP along with the local revenues, so that would be correct, whatever.
So if they don't have any local contributions, it's the bare minimum. So we are in St. Tammany being punished then because our citizens have decided to vote for better schools. So all of our students are being punished because of that. You don't have to answer that.
Anyone else? Mr. Betancourt?
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Maybe Terry, that trial, the suit and all is still scheduled October, which may impact our local dollars that they're presently confiscating from us?
I'm not sure of the status of that, but that is being looked at, I believe.
What'd you say?
I'm not sure on the status of the lawsuit, what exactly that they're going after for, in October, but I know they're looking at not having the local money removed from us.
That's what I was referring to. And that's still scheduled for
Yes, sir.
October?
Matter of fact, we had a request for some information from Mr. Hammond's office, I think the day before the hurricane, and Terry took care of that for me, and we met our deadline of presenting that documentation that Mr. Hammond's had requested. And let me just say this too, all along, Cheryl, Terry, myself, we've all said that if we get any of this money back because of the suit, we would certainly look into reinstating some of these programs or other things that we've had to scale back on. So we're committed to doing that for sure.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Harrell.
Just a point of interest. Have you looked at, and we're, what, in the fourth year of the no growth from the MFP?
That's correct.
And this scholarship program, have you got a figure for what that's cost St. Tammany?
Well, the scholarship program, it would be the 56 times the 9,000. So you're looking at more than $500,000, and we're looking at it might be even a little bit more than that.
And the MFP is at 21 million? What was it over 4 years of the MFP that we
The
haven't?
MFP's been over $45 million over 3 years.
That we haven't got?
So really, it only cost us a little over 50 million?
In 4 years.
Wonderful program, wasn't it?
Any other comments? Okay. Well, I'm just going to ask my question because my math isn't as good. But if we're not getting the money for them originally, and then they're taking it out of our funding, that means that we're paying for it twice. So it's almost like $18,000 per child as opposed to the $9,000. Because if they're not paying us and they taking it, it's one thing if they were paying it and taking it out and holding it, but they're actually not paying us and taking it. So it's doubling the $9,100.
It's called confiscating.
So I think it is impacting the St. Tammany Parish school system drastically, even when our local representatives said it would not. So it's going to be catastrophic if it continues. Thank you. I guess I need to be quiet being I'm the chairman. That's why I don't like being the chairman. Moving on now. I'm sorry, we got to vote. So any public comments on the budget? Seeing none, I guess we're ready to vote now on the budget. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All who abstain? So ordered. All right, moving on now to the monthly purchasing report. Ms. Fortenberry.
The monthly purchasing report is in your packets. Ms. Stevens is here to answer any questions you may have.
Do we have any questions? Yes, we do. Ms. Mary Kay.
Thank you. Item 2, the band uniforms for Mandeville High. What would be the source of funds for that?
The school's special band.
Any other questions? Seeing none.
Good job, Janet.
Janet, great answer.
I do have to tell y'all one funny story since we're doing purchasing real quick. You know, we had seen that, I think Channel 4 brought back Lucy Bustamante, and somebody else brought back Dan Milham. And we were sitting up here bored watching the storm, and we started talking about George Guzzi. So I actually picked up the phone, and I told him, you know, Channel 4's got Lucy, Channel 6 got Dan Milham. We need George Guzzi. And that's really, I think it's probably the first time I talked to him since he retired, and he didn't think it was me at first. And the funny part was he said, hey, I can be there tomorrow if you need me. And if you know George Guzzi, if I'd have said we need you, he'd have been here. But that kind of shows how bored we got at times up here as we were waiting around to see what was going to happen.
It's awesome, but it also shows the commitment of the people that work here and the ones that retire from here, so that's still excellent. Announcements from the president. Mr. Luke.
Thank you, Mr. Durham. The regular board meeting will be held on Thursday, September 13th at the C.J. Shane Administrative Complex, beginning at 7 p.m. In your packet, board members, you have two conferences from one LSBA and one from Nuff Said. If you would be sure to look those over and mark them one way or the other so Carol can get that taken care of. As they went, one was in your packet last week, and she only got very few responses, so we need to get those done and so on. And you certainly could leave it tonight if you checked off with Debbie or Kim, and she'll see that they get them. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luke. With no other business coming before the board, we're adjourned. Thank y'all.